Good morning, everybody. Stu Smith here, going live. How are you today? I hope well. Looks like we're getting into the middle of the summer. We're in our 5th week of the summer training program, and we are running more, but also working on running faster. And how do you do that? Well, it depends. Depends on what kind of race you are preparing for. Are you trying to get faster at shuttle runs? Because those are part of a test, like a sprint drag carry in the Army fitness test. There's shuttle runs for the candidate fitness assessment. So those are more speed and agility work. So explosive starts, work on your turnarounds, those kind of things. We usually mix those into a leg day. Sometimes we'll do it on a mobility day after warming up and loosening up, so you're really ready to make those directional changes hard. But there's also timed runs, and there's a wide variety of timed runs. Like in the spec ops selection world, you usually have to start off with like a 1.5 or a 2 mile timed run for the Army, 1.5 for the Navy and the Air Force. Some folks, the officers in the Air Force, have to do a 3 miler for their fitness test to get accepted into it. Marines have to do a 3 miler. So these are different styles of training. Similar, but just different in volume primarily, but also strategy. As you start getting into the 4 milers, like you have to do every week at Buds, 5 milers, like you will see at Ranger SF training, 6 milers too, as well. And then starting to ruck, all of those are going to have specific focus on how to do it. I typically focus this way. And you can see a sample of how we do like 20 miles a week, right? So if you look at this article, this is a running plan that helps you uh, get 20 miles a week. I don't recommend you just jumping into it on your first week, but it just has some ideas on how to do this. Build up to 20 miles a week and then mix in your Monday can be a goal pace day, whether that's a 6-minute mile pace for your shorter timed runs. This is our standard, what we try to do. So 1.5 miles, 9 minutes, 2 mile, 12 minutes, 3 miles, 18 minutes. Those are goals. Now you may be a minute off of that. That's okay, but you need to start learning those paces, which means your quarter miles are going to be 90 seconds, a minute and a half. Your half miles are going to be 3 minutes. Your miles are going to be 6 minutes. So those are ways to learn how to run faster. Got to practice running faster. Now, there's also, after that, you don't want to do too many of those in a week. You could mix in a slower run. You could also mix in a day of harder runs, meaning not necessarily paced drills, but speed intervals. So you're working on ways to make running harder on yourself. So running hills, bleachers, sand, sprints, carrying a sled, just little things like that that get those legs pumping, get you tired faster, but work on ways to move your legs faster while you are under an additional stress. Weighted, hills, sleds, sand, stairs, all of those are great ways to make running harder. So when you're running slick, it is easier. Then usually in the middle of the week, we'll do something that has nothing to do with running. Depends on the person though. We'll usually do a day off of running and make it a mobility day, biking, rowing, elliptical, stretching, foam rolling, getting all the kinks out from the previous 2 days of whether it's a leg day mixed in there with some sprints. You're going to feel it. Wednesday's a good midweek day to like pull back a little bit and recover from that impact, especially if you're fairly new to running. You're not a running athlete per se. However, on some guys, we will say, all right, you're going to do a mobility day after you do a 4 mile timed run. Some people ask me all the time, hey, my mile and a half solid, I got that down to 6 minutes. How can I get better at my 4 mile timed run? And I literally say this: go run 4 miles. I'm serious. So what we do for those guys, if long as it's within their progression, is go run 4 miles and then come and join us on the mobility day. And I want you to run those 4 miles fast. You're going to create a strategy to running that, whether that is a pace the whole time or it's a negative split on the way back and you try to come back faster. 2 miles down, 2 miles back type of thing. Um, and it's a fueling issue. How are you going to fuel prior to that 27, 28-minute event is what we try to get our guys down to. So a 7-minute mile, focusing on that four. We'll do the same thing for 5 milers too. Try to get that 7-minute mile pace in there. And that's a solid pace. Some people will be faster, yes. But for the most part, if you can do that, you're solid. And even you want to even get it to a point where a 7-minute mile is easy for four. It's not a gut check. So once you get it and you gave it all you got, you still need a little more training to make it so that it's not such a punch in the gut every time you do it. Because there's only so many gut checks that you have the energy to do when you're going through spec ops training. And the fewer you do, the better. Right? I mean, everything could be a gut check, yes, and you could still get through spec ops training. That's why they created the um, fire in the gut award for the guy that just barely passed everything and everything was a gut check for him. But just to be prepared properly, you don't necessarily need to run a 28 4 mile at a gut check pace. Try to be able to hit a 28 4 mile and make that a nice steady pace. And that comes with time. Literally, if you just go out and run 4 miles, you're going to learn a lot about that 4 mile run. You're going to learn about yourself too on where you need to work. Is it the first half that you need to work on? Is it second half you need to work on? Is it the back end of that pace? So then you can structure your workouts in a way where now you need to do some mile repeats. Do a mile, rest for 4 or 5 minutes, do another mile, rest for 4 or 5 minutes. Now that third and fourth mile is going to be the tough one. And that's when you got to dig in and get that thing back to the same pace. So there's ways to structure that back half, and you won't know it until you are practicing and timing yourself in those events regularly. And even if you're seeing results some weeks, and usually within 3 to 4 weeks, you're down in that comfort zone of running. If let's say a 28-minute 4 mile was a gut check, now after 3 or 4 weeks of running 4 milers once a week, maybe along with 25, 30 miles a week of other type of running, a mix of running, hills, beach, sprints, goal pace, days off of running as well. The remainder of the week, we usually do another hard day. We call it lungs and legs day, where you mix in a lot of squats and lunges and soft sand with running or rucking or both. And then Saturday can be it's up to you how you want to do it. It can be a long, slow distance day, but it doesn't have to be running. Um, it can be non-impact cardio as well. You can build your own triathlon of maybe run for 30 minutes, then go do another 30 minutes of swimming and a 30-minute bike, or any particular order. You get yourself an hour and a half of cardio, but only 30 minutes of impact. That's a good way to kind of build yourself into a better running athlete, especially if you're not a running athlete, never competed in types of events that were running other than running up and down a field for many, many sets. But anyway, that's how we do it. We mix it up. You can check out that article, for kind of recommendations on it. What we do on the days we don't run. We do a lot of stretching. Yes, somebody says, is stretching important over here? Let me see where to put that. Is stretching important? Yes, absolutely. I love stretching. But mobility is just as important. So mobility and flexibility are similar, but you need to learn how to work your range of motion of those joints, which will require some looseness of the muscles and some strength of the other muscles that are causing you to be able to move those muscles throughout a full range of motion. Right? So, like a high knee lift, yeah, you need to stretch your hamstrings and your butt and lower back, but you also need to stretch, flex your hip flexors on the front end side of that. Same whenever you go side leg swings and working abductors, adductors. Those two muscles work together so you can do that. One's flexing, one's stretching. If you want a full range of motion, you got to learn that and flex and stretch opposing muscle groups so you can do it. But anyway, check out this article. Some good stuff in here from bike intervals, bike pyramids. If you're looking for non-impact stuff, hypoxic swim training, which just gets you really winded, like the 50-50 mixed with some skip breathing. It's a good way to go. But a lot of people ask about running. I'd say it's probably the biggest question most people ask. And because, quite frankly, a lot of people fail runs, whether it's a sprint, it's a shuttle run, it's a short 1.5 mile run, or it's a longer 4 or 5 mile timed run. All of them are needed to be able to practice them specifically. And if you really want to get good at them, you need to start assessing yourself in those events and seeing where you drop off your pace, whether that is an explosive start of a sprint, your turnaround of a shuttle run, or you just can't maintain a pace of a timed run. All three are specific issues that most people have problems with, and they just lack putting them into their training plans. So, yes, can lifting help you with your power and speed? Sure. Explosive power? Yeah. Jumping can too. But you also need to work on muscle stamina. Lots of calisthenics. That's why we do walking lunges for a 1/4 mile, and work on that. We also do leg lifts too, and leg strength training mixed in there. It all works together for you. You just have to be patient and get through a couple cycles. Next thing you know, you're fast, you're strong, you're more durable for load bearing, and you'll probably still say, yeah, it's a run a man's game out there. Many people do. All right, I hope that helps you. Let's take some questions. Thoughts on getting fatigued prior to hard runs to simulate that PST buds run, or go into hard runs fresh to maximize gains? I'd say do both. We do a lot of lifting and calisthenics, and then we follow it up with a run and follow it up with a swim. Sometimes we'll swim first just to get used to doing things after swimming, which is the PST. If you're Air Force guy, you're going to swim last. So swim last. But it really, it's up to you. I would say mix that up for sure. Because you definitely want to learn how to do calisthenics and run afterwards, because many people can run really well fresh, but after a lot of upper body calisthenics, it takes them a good 1/2 mile to get into the groove. And that's why, I've come up with that transition protocol that helps you transition from the calisthenics into the run. If you haven't seen it, I call it the PST transition. You can see it in the PST clinic article. Once again, free stuff. It's called the Navy SEAL SWIC EOD Diver PST Clinic article. I'll put it in here. This is the title of it. The last bit of that is in there, and it's good. It breaks down the entire PST and how you should create a strategy around it. And you won't know this until you start practicing these events, whether that's a PST, a 4-mile run, a drown proofing session. All of those things need to be practiced. Though I do recommend don't tie yourself up until you're in the Navy. Just simulate being tied. Is stretching important? Absolutely. Check out my Mobility Day posts up on Instagram. You'll see how important it is. Do you have a workout plan for Navy AIRR? Absolutely. Do I have one here to show you? Let me see here. I don't think I do, but I do. It's called the Navy SAR and Coast Guard Helicopter Rescue Swimmer Workout. It's basically for rescue swimmers. Rescue swimmer training. Lots of pool skills. All right. What are thoughts about running in boots? Well, depends on the boots. If these are the boots that you're going to be issued when you join the military, then absolutely, I recommend doing it. I don't say recommend doing it 100% of your runs, but I would say progress, build up to 50% of them. Though I will say the boots today aren't your granddad boots from Vietnam. The boots we were issued were Vietnam era jungle boots, and they sucked. And it took weeks to break them in so they fit to your feet. You had to cut out all this metal that was in it to prevent, bungee sticks from coming through. I mean, it was ridiculous how heavy they were. Now they're made by Nike, and they are by far the lightest boots I've ever seen, probably the most comfortable boots I've ever seen. If there's anything that you need to do to them to personalize them for you, you may want to cut out the heel cup, because there's this plastic piece that goes on the heel, and you'll feel that rubbing on your heel. You take it out, and now it's just material and leather against your foot versus this hard plastic cup that you got to cut the material and then grab a pair of pliers and pull that thing out. Highly recommend doing that, especially if you're getting heel blisters. And wear 2 pairs of socks if you're going to play around in boots. These are things that you need to learn anyway, so I recommend just breaking in your boots, learning, where your hot spots are, how to fix those, how to deal with blisters if you get them. If you can prevent blisters, that's even smarter. I did it with a very thin rayon polyester type sock. Didn't have any cotton in it or wool, just basically like a pantyhose type of sock, really thin. And then that was my layer on my skin with the thick issue sock that they issue you. It's a wool cotton blend type thing. And I never got a blister. Never got a blister doing that. And I still do it today. Female in my 50s, recreational runner, but want to get faster for a 2-miler of the AFT, struggling with maintenance pace. Any tips? Yeah, I'm in my 50s as well, and I have a program here for that AFT. I call it, it's the Army PFT workout, just an old cover, but it's been updated so many times that it's gone through the ACFT, AFT. In fact, I just updated it last month with the new changes that replace the leg tucks with plank poses, and it's got running plans in it as well. If you're looking at crushing all the events of the AFT, I would recommend that. However, if you're looking at just running a 2-miler a little bit faster, check out that article I posted in the comment section above, and it's titled, I think it's titled like 20 miles a week running plan. Let me see what I do with it. running plan to help you get to and through selection. And it's only a 20-mile a week thing. So it's one of those things where you build up to 20 miles a week. If you're not at 20 miles a week, just run every other day and you got 10 miles in a week. But those are, types of run workouts that will make mile and a halfs faster or 2-milers faster. Goal pace running, get some extra cardio. Doesn't have to be running. It can be rucking. It could be non-impact cardio, which is, something I like to do when I'm getting a lot of cardio in. Biking, rowing, elliptical, all of those things that gets my heart going, my legs moving with less impact. Just being a heavier guy that likes to run, or I should say, I choose to run still. Not sure how many people really like running, especially if you were coming from a lifting background, but you just do it because it's a healthy thing to do. I also mix in a lot of non-impact cardio with that. I hope that helps you. But if you haven't seen it, you are a great candidate for, where are you? There you go. Ageless Athlete. Fitness Over 50. It's a classic. It's only 6 months old. And by the way, I just updated this one. Wrote this one 10 years ago now when I was 45 and just updated it. Cleaned up some workouts, had some dead links in there I had to fix, and added some new stuff, better organization to the Tactical Fitness Over 40 for any of you guys over there. If you had bought it before from my site, I updated it with a free email. I sent you the PDF file. Let's see. Morning, Stu. A new gym opened up close to my house 2 weeks ago. That's open 24 hours. Love it. Been getting my workout in 2 a.m. Damn, before I go to work. Feeling great, man. You're hardcore, agree, man. But that's good. Good job. If your hours require you to get it done that early, that's awesome. Definitely. Do you have any recommendations for ultra marathoners switching back down to mileage, getting faster? Just finished a 50 miler 2 weeks ago and was humbled by the track yesterday. Yeah, I don't deal with many ultra marathoners. Every now and then, some of my guys will go do one for a occasional gut check. I always tell them, don't do it. Because, half the time people come back and they can't run for a month, maybe 2, because they're nursing something. I've seen people run those 50, 100 milers and then come back and need surgery because they broke something in their foot, messed up their hip. So I usually just say don't do it, especially if they're preparing for a spec ops selection. There's many ways to build mental toughness besides running for a weekend. Though you will see Jesus in those type of events, and I guess that could be helpful. But is also helpful, waking up early, running in the cold weather, knowing that you're comfortable right now at 5 in the morning, and you got to get up and go run in the dark in the winter. Those are days that build mental toughness one scoop at a time without kicking yourself in the nuts so much that you're going to be injured for weeks. No, but ultramarathoners have a slower pace. That's typical. My advice is, cut your mileage in half from what you have been doing prior to that marathon, and just work on speed. In fact, probably that article that I posted up there, that 20 miles a week, is probably a great one for you. And you're just going to focus on, 4, maybe 5-mile run days in the week and work on your speed. I bet that will help you. Never really thought of it, but that's a good one for you guys. I've seen a lot of long, slow distance guys not pass 4-mile timed runs before, even though they could run 60, 70 miles a week. Just happens. All right, let's see. DJ Shipley recommended your book to me to prep for buds. Been staying consistent. Good job. Any more tips for really improving endurance and on run times? I just shared them, Carson. Um, but yeah, get on it. Keep on working the cardio side. Get programs like this. You know, this is specifically designed prep for specific events that you're going to see. You know, this is all about that whole mindset of if you're not assessing, you're just guessing, right? Have an idea of what you suck at, right? Have an idea of what you're good at. Maintain what you're good at. Focus on improving what you suck at doing. That's the secret to all of this. And people who ignore what their weaknesses are will be exposed within the first day of most spec ops training programs. It's just the way it works. All right, let's go. I answered all those over at Instagram. Looks like we have a lot over here on YouTube. Hey Stu, what's the best alternative to sand? Live in a city where there's not any sand or beaches around. Read something a while ago where you said you ran in the sides of rivers and lakes. I did. I found sand somehow, found it on a riverbed, found it on the outside of a farm field, that was just plowed. So it was just plowed dirt. That was a little harder than soft sand, to be honest with you, but it worked. But if you don't have it, and something we do each week is we find a hill. And if you live in a city, there's probably parking garages where you can run up the parking garage, walk down the steps, run up the parking garage, run down the steps. That's something. Though, if it's real busy, I probably wouldn't do it. That's just a lot of carbon dioxide. I'd probably do it when there's no cars in there or, nobody's coming in and out. Carbon monoxide, sorry. But that's what we do. Or bleachers. Go to a big stadium and run those bleachers. Even a small stadium. We have a stadium that's maybe 15 steps to the top, so it's not a big bleachered stadium. But it's good. It's good enough. You run that for 10, 15 minutes, that's going to get your legs going. Good question. Was that good enough for building strength? What are you talking about? Running in sand? Running in sand doesn't really build strength. It just builds leg durability, if that makes sense. Stairs, same thing. It's building a muscle stamina and leg durability to running when things are just hard. Could it be a function of strength? Sure. I think all of it needs a foundation of strength at some point. If you're just a skinny leg runner, hills are going to be tough for you. But if you're light enough, it might be easy for you. But if you're a big guy, 200 plus pounds, and you're running hills and you're running soft sand, yeah, that sucks. That's going to require some extra strength to get that moving. Mr. Singh says, any tips on building up to 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, 200 dips with a 20-pound weight vest? Seems to require more recovery than body weight for me at the moment. Yeah, I would agree. My advice is first do it without a weight vest. Then, once that's easy and you notice, like, mark how much time you need to recover, especially on the big sets you're doing. I don't know if you're doing them like a max rep set or making a pyramid out of it. Probably I would start off with a 19 set pyramid, 1, 10, back to 1, double your push-ups and triple your squats. That's a good workout. In fact, I may do that next week. I like that one. Run a quarter mile every set. That's a great one too. When you rest with a quarter mile run for 19 sets of that, that's legit. That's some good volume and some good mileage thrown in there. And it teaches you how to run after being pumped. So that's another one of those transition workouts that I really like for that purpose. But my advice would be do it without a weight vest till it's no problem, then add 10 pounds, do it again, then add 20 pounds, do it again. It might take you some few months to get to that point. Yeah, bridge running. We have a bridge we run. It's like a quarter mile up and a quarter mile down. That's a good one. Yep. What's up, Matthew? Oh, let's see. What else we got here? Where do you program corrective exercises like hip flexor strengthening, mobility day, pre or post run, leg day? Yeah, all the above. We do a lot of corrective stuff on mobility day, a lot of non impact cardio, stretching, foam rolling, moving, full range of motion type work, core, neck. Um, and then, post workouts, we'll do it too. Pre, we'll do some dynamic stretches for a warm up. Some of the exercises that we are going to do for the workout get done in that pre warm up exercise phase. But yeah, leg day especially. Hip flexors are great. We'll use hip flexor stuff even as rest exercises. So like if we're doing deadlifts, our rest exercise for deadlifts is hanging from a pull-up bar and doing knee ups. Bring your knees up as high as you can. Stretches out the lower back, decompresses it a little bit, as well as works your hip flexors. We'll do flutter kicks as a rest, sometimes in between swimming laps. Swimming with fins is a great hip flexor strengthening exercise. So they're all built in to the workout, to the pre-post warm up, cool down, mobility day. It's all part of it. Zarius says, is there such thing as being too heavy to run? I'm 23% body fat, and I run about 8 miles last week, and I got mild shin splints, a bit of tension in my knee. Guys are saying it's because I'm too big. Well, yes and no. I've seen big guys run with no problem. However, if you're new to running, even if you're not big, you're probably going to have mild shin splints and a bit of tension in the knee. It's just the way it works, especially if you go from 0 to 8 miles in a week, that may be too much. Maybe you need to go 4 miles, next week. Just run a mile every other day for the week. That's it. And then spend majority of your time on non-impact cardio activity so you can at least get 30, 40 minutes of cardio time and just, 10 minutes or so actually running. If you really want a smart progression into running, use the triathlon method. And that is basically 2/3 of your cardio is going to be non-impact cardio like swimming, biking, rowing, elliptical, things like that. And a third of it will be running. It's a great way to do it. I can't tell you how many times I advise people to do that. I did it myself when I came out of a powerlifting football mode and I said I wanted to be a spec ops candidate in 2 years. It took me 2 years to really turn into that. And that took me out of the weight room, doing more calisthenics, doing triathlon type training, and that's how I did it. Sue, what are your thoughts on D-load weeks? Are they incorporated into your programs? Absolutely. We just did a D-load week last week. In fact, if you read this, we have a special take on the D-load week in the seasonal tactical fitness periodization. We have a block periodization model in there. And that block is we actually put in a D-load week every fourth week, but it's different. It's not like you're just taking the week off and doing nothing. There's a couple of different ways to deload. You can do it that way. I don't recommend it. You can do a week of mobility days and do all non-impact stuff, especially if you're running a lot of miles. You just need to take a break. Don't want to do nothing. So you do non-impact cardio, stretching, foam rolling, work some auxiliary stuff on the hips, knees, ankles, shoulders, just for health reasons. Take a week to do that. That's great. You can also do a normal week that you have prescribed, but cut it 50%, right? So you have your normal training week, you just cut everything by 50%. That's a form of a deload. The way we do it in this is every fourth week. Like right now, we're in a running and calisthenics, high rep, high mileage, progression training cycle. We're in our fifth week now. Last week, we did a deload, and that deload was a lift week. Cut our mileage in half that we had worked up to. So we cut it in half with the mileage, but we turned all of the calisthenics into lifts. Now we warmed up with calisthenics, stuff like that. We lifted heavy. Our reps were small, and our mileage was lower than it has been. Like I said, cut it in half. And then now we're at the next week of cals and cardio cycle, progressing up to that next 4-week deload where we'll do it again. And it has been probably one of my best ideas when doing this annual training program, because I have a system of training and it's 4 seasons. Every season has a different focus. Primary focus is strength, power, speed, and agility in the winter. Secondary focus is maintain a little bit of cardio and muscle stamina. Flip that in the summer, and primary focus is calisthenics and cardio, muscle stamina and endurance, higher mileage, higher run times, faster run times, and maintaining a little bit of strength from the previous lift cycle. And we do that through the block periodization model. So I've seen people get bigger in the winter lift cycle and improve their PST scores because of that one little change. And get better at running, get better at push-ups, even though we're in the middle of a lift cycle. Same on the flip side, seeing people get stronger, maintain their strength in the summer, even though we're in a high mileage running cycle, by doing that block periodization. Call it a deload. It's my form of a deload. Does that make sense, Joseph? All right. I was wondering, on week 10, day 5 of your US SEAM program, is there runs in between every set of burpees? And what does it mean by 5 burpees equals burpee 1-5? Probably better off emailing me and showing me the workout, because I don't have it right in front of me. But basically, burpee 1 to 5 is a pyramid. You're going to do 1 burpee, jog 50 meters across the field, do 2 burpees, jog back, 3 burpees, jog back, 4 burpees, jog back, 5 burpees. That's going to be a total of 15 burpees. It's just really a form of a warm up. Is how one of the warm ups is. If it's at the very top, consider it a warm up, right? If it's down below, that's the meat of the workout. Down at the bottom, it's usually some form of cool down cardio phase. But email me if that didn't answer your question, and I can get a little more in depth for you. What's your go-to method for loosening a tweaked, tight lower back? Stretching hamstrings helps, but wondered if you do anything else. Every now and then I get something tweaked in my lower back. Usually it's non-impact cardio. Try to lay off the running. I'll get in the pool, do some swimming, do some aqua jogging, like full range of motion, aqua jogging, get my knees high, knees back. There's some twisting involved with that. I do dynamic stretches in chest deep water. I'll get out, do some foam rolling, do some stretching. And usually by that time, I feel a whole lot better. And, sometimes I'll just lay on my belly and do swimmers, I call it. It's like little flutter kicks with your knees off the floor, thighs off the floor a little bit. And you just do little flutter kicks. That flexes that lumbar region and butt. And those two together, if you can get those muscles tired, and if you're having these spasms, that's a good way to kind of work through that muscle spasm. Next thing you know, you're spasming a lot less. I don't know. Hope that helps. Do you have weekly mileage before shipping to buds? Yeah, I have an article on it. You can Google. You can put that question into the Google machine. In fact, I will do that right now. Miles of running. Let me Google that for you. Miles of running each week before buds. Stu Smith. Okay, there's an article that says how many miles per week should you run before buds. I would recommend reading that article because it's there. So check it out. I don't have one answer for everybody. Not everybody needs to run 50 miles a week. Some people do. I don't recommend it for everybody. All right, let's see. A couple more questions and then I got to go. These are good questions today. I appreciate it. Damn, whole bunch more popped up over there at Instagram. 185, 11% body fat. I've been in a bulk for 2 months. My PST is in 2 months. Should I keep increasing weight or should I cut for the PST so I can do more reps of calisthenics? I don't know. You're not heavy. I wouldn't sweat it. You're not overweight. Just get good at that body weight. Learn how to run at that body weight. You got 2 months. That's plenty of time. My concern is that I get injured or lack of energy going into the PST. No, not if you're just getting better shape. 185 is not big. I mean, I would say that is probably average at buds on the big side, right? I'd say the bigger guys are usually 185 to 200. Every now and then you'll get some 200 plus guys. Every now and then you'll get some guys under 185 in the 150s, 60s range. But it's like this little bell curve, right? And 185's right there at the top. That's pretty much the average. So I think you're fine. I mean, if you want to put on some bulk so you don't freeze to death, that's something you could consider. But just get good at your body weight. I think you're fine. Some advice for a 38-year-old candidate for Navy basic training. Yeah, man. I think you'll be fine. Navy basic training is not going to be hard. I promise you. I think if anything, you're going to be babysitting a bunch of 18-year-olds that are away from home for the first time. And that's probably going to be your biggest challenge of just keeping them focused and doing stuff. They'll probably make you some form of leadership within your unit. So just be prepared. You'll be older than most of the instructors as well. So, any updates on the current Buds class? I don't have any updates on them. Everybody's doing well though. I don't know what classes started right now. I have to do. That's a good question, Harry. I'll ring in and see what's going on. Preparing for MARSOC ANS this winter. Do you have any tips, guidance that you have seen from successful, non-successful candidates? Um, you know, it, the ANS at MARSOC is it's really a high-level selection, and I mean they're getting active Marines, obviously, so fitness usually isn't the big issue. Swimming, yeah, could be an issue if you blew that off, and treading and stuff like that. But um, the biggest thing is really tactics. How quickly can you learn new tactics? Land nav's going to be important. Shooting drills are going to be important. But yeah, as far as training concerned, right here, PFTs, recon selections, very similar. Swimming in camis, fast 300-meter swim, um, running, rucking, all of those are going to be highly tested. So just be a good Marine on that stuff. PFTs, O courses, all that, CFTs. And then from there, it's really more tactics and you being a good team player, helping people out, you know, being an asset in your class. I think that's probably your biggest keys right there. And if you're an officer, make sure you're a leader, leading by example, making things run smoothly for everybody in there. Any physical suggestions staying HTK after the military? Hard to kill. Yeah, I think so. I mean, what we do is this. I've been doing this for 25 years. Um, Tactical fitness periodization is just a way to structure your workouts where you work on everything versus getting out of the military and just working in the gym and working on your 600-pound deadlift without running or rucking or swimming or anything like that. These just keep you well rounded, really, is what they do. And then when you start getting into the 40s and 50s, boom, ageless athlete, lots of mobility work. Highly recommend that because when you turn 40, every injury that you've had in your athletic career will come back and remind you that you had that injury. That's just the way it works. 50s aren't any better. But if you can start adding those mobility days to your week, I promise you this. If you do nothing else but add a mobility day, 5 minutes of cardio, non-impact cardio, 5 minutes of stretching, foam rolling. Do that 5 times in an hour. Mix in some treading, swimming, yoga, whatever. You can mix whatever you want in there. Make it easy on yourself. Middle of the week, it will be life changing. I promise you. I started it 10 years ago. Wish I'd have started it 25 years ago. Completely changed the way I way I feel. At 45, I thought I was done running. My hips hurt so bad. Then I started mobility days, and I just ran 7 miles today. 10, 12, 11 years later. All right. All right. Last question. Hey, Stu, specific question about your cardio and calisthenics program if you have it handy. I don't have a copy of it with me. Week 1, day 3 of the intermediate program, it's a 50% Murph, the workout for the day, or is that first? Minus the swim, obviously. I'm not sure. You need to email me these things, to be honest with you, and then I can pull it up on my PDFs files, look at it, and actually answer it to you a little bit better. But a 50% Murph is, instead of doing 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 squats, it's 50% of that. 50 pull-ups, 100 push-ups, 150 squats. Everything else is the same. So it's a progression to it. But yeah, that's the workout. I don't think I would have made that a warm up in the intermediate phase. Sometimes we do warm up with a Murph. A little more advanced though. All right. All right, you guys, I guess that's it. I think I answered everybody. If I didn't, I feel just email me, stu@stusmith.com. Especially if you have questions about workouts, happy to answer those, clear it up for you. But yeah, go to StuSmithFitness.com. Lots of articles over there, programming like I've been showing all day. And then you can save 15%. Save 15% on all of these type of programs by using the Live15 coupon code. It's there. I appreciate your time. I will be back tomorrow. We'll show some videos tomorrow on the CSS and maybe some other swim skills as well. But until then, I'll see you tomorrow morning about 9 o'clock East Coast time. You guys have a good one.